Anyway, and more Microsoft tools are getting improved by the addition of Mark's stuff. Anyway, the schedule. Let me just make sure everybody's clear on that, because I've got some questions. All right, so today we're going to do chapter 3 and 4. The first projects are due in 2 weeks, because next week is a holiday, and the first quiz the week after that. And so you should have done the first couple projects by then. Many people have already started, which I highly recommend. And you click on these links to see the projects. There is probably a list of lecture notes and projects in the bookstore, printed out and bound. You can buy that if you want, but it's all on my website. All the projects are here, and there are all the PowerPoints that I show you are here, and there's a printable lecture notes if you feel like printing this on paper or reading it. I really wouldn't bother buying it printed, but you could. Some people find it convenient to have it printed when they're doing the projects, but I think with a little adaptation, you can become paperless and just read it on the screen. I've gotten pretty used to that. I threw away my books and just read everything on the Kindle now. It's a lot nicer. Anyway, anybody got any questions about anything?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
How do you know when the project is due?
Right here. There's the schedule. Just up higher on the website. 1 or 2 are due here, 3 and 4 are due there. All right, good. And you got to turn them in on time. If they're late, you lose 5 points, and if they're more than 2 weeks late, they're no good at all. Which, by the way, I should point out, there is one project that's only worth 5 points. So it's worth nothing if it's late at all. The second one, putting Office on. Just be aware, I had one guy actually quit 3 of my classes and never take any more again because he got so mad about that. He lost 5 points, and this proved that I was unfit to be a teacher, and that was the end of him. So be warned. And I'm heartless, and I have not changed that policy, so be warned. So, all right. So this help and support is getting pretty good in Windows. Every version of Windows they do better, and I think it's Shift F5 to continue. It used to be Shift F5, but apparently not anymore. All right. From current slide. There used to be a key. It is Shift F5, huh? Well, I guess it's this Microsoft keyboard. That's the problem. The F5 keys are disabled unless you hit this key. Ah, there we go. Hi. All right. So, the help is getting very good. It's now connected to the internet. They expect you to be on the internet all the time. So it's going to search on the internet for things. Yeah, I do have some. All right. So this will search Microsoft's website and give you the things. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, on the certification test, of course, you don't say this, but the truth is, don't use Microsoft search engines. I mean, Microsoft can't find any. You can't find a file on your own hard drive. They can't find a file on the internet. Bing doesn't work. I mean, Google is the way you find something. If you want to find something, you just put site:/Microsoft.com at the end of the Google search, and it will find the official Microsoft documentation on things much better than any Microsoft search engine. So that's how I find out how to do things. But you know, Microsoft doesn't like hearing that. Right, so remote assistance is built into your machine. Ever since Windows XP, you can remote control machines from any distance as long as the end user permits it, and that's extremely useful in a project where you play with this. So this is intended to help someone who needs help right now, so both users have to be in front of their keyboard, and the person being controlled has to allow you to see the screen and allow you to take control. So it's pretty nice, and they keep improving in each version of Windows. This is the only built-in feature I'm aware of that lets 2 people share the same machine at the same time, which is not something you would normally want. If one of you moves the mouse to the right and the other one moves your mouse up, it will move at an angle, adding up the 2 motions. So it's a weird thing. There are other ways to share machines. Microsoft made a product called Steady State, which unfortunately they ended after XP. It was extremely popular, and Steady State had 2 features. In the first place, it was like deep freeze. It would roll your machine back to its original state every time you restarted it. And in second place, it would let like 3 people share the machine, and they would each get their own desktop, which was intended for developing countries where they can only afford a few computers and a lot of people willing to share them. But they took it away. Anyway, there are third-party products that will do these things. So you can connect over the internet, and if you have a modern version like Windows 7, you can even connect through network address translation without port forwarding under many conditions. Now, remote desktop is another feature that's been in Windows for a long time, and it is intended for a completely different purpose. Remote desktop is, the idea is you're at work, you finish your day, you drive home, your boss calls you, needs one more thing. Instead of having to drive back in, you can remotely control your machine from home. And then the machine itself, the desktop will be covered with a screen, a login screen, so nobody can see what's going on. Nobody else can be using this machine. You're controlling it from home as if you had a long stick and a pair of binoculars and you were poking the keyboard from home. That's the idea. And you can access the printer at work or the printer at home and all that jazz. It's very nice. This is a Citrix. It's like many Microsoft features they buy from other companies. Citrix sells a commercial version of this, and Microsoft licensed a limited version to put in Windows 2000 Server. And then they put it in the professional versions of desktop products from XP onward. Yeah?
Is VPN also part of this?
No, VPN is separate. What VPN does is it connects you to the network, as if you had a long network cable, but it doesn't take over and use your machine. These are all similar solutions to permit you to get work done while you're traveling, but they operate in different ways. Good. So anyway, this is quite useful, but the machine doing this is acting as a server, and it has to have a professional version of better the operating system. The machine at home does not need to have anything. You can even control it from Linux or the Mac or Windows 95. The home machine is just viewing the images being sent. It's sent over the internet with a remote desktop protocol, listens on port 3389 by default, and is a very popular target for malware and attacks. Because obviously if this is turned on, then all you have to do is guess the password and you can control the system, and if there's any defect, which there often is, you can just take over machines with it. So corporations typically want to have a careful policy about this. Typically you do not let people use this remotely at a company. What you do is you force them to come in through your official VPN client onto the network, and then they connect through the VPN to this. So you don't have an open port 3389 on the internet. That's considered a poor security practice. So that's the game. Well, this one does not work through NAT. You have to have a listening port, public address listening on port 3389. So like I say, normally you use a virtual private network to a VPN concentrator like a Cisco concentrator, and from there you connect through the company network on premises to the machine you want to control. So that's remote assistance. The novice wants help. They send an invitation to the expert accepts the invitation, and they both control this machine simultaneously to fix a problem. Remote assistance, the other one, the other one, this chair is empty. This machine, this person has gone home, and they're being controlled from home. They're controlling the same machine they have at work. Of course, you have to leave your work machine turned on and logged in all the time for this to work. Remote assistance will really try to get out, because remember, the point of remote assistance is you are a beginner and you're stuck. So they try not to make it complicated. So it'll try every possible way of getting out of your network. If you have a public IP version 4 address, which almost nobody has anymore, it can connect directly. About the only people that have those are people that actually have dial-up 56K modem service. And there aren't too many of those people anymore in America. IPv6 would be nice if you actually have IPv6 end-to-end. Most people don't have that either. But UPnP is kind of scary stuff. Universal plug and play. Your routers have the ability to take UPnP signals and automatically open ports in the router to let things through, which is somewhat risky, but it does permit this to happen, and a lot of routers have that on by default.
Sam?
Yeah.
Don't a lot of users or devices have public IP4 and IPv6?
No, typically, now if you have only one computer at home and you plug directly into your modem, that's what you've got. But almost everybody has a router at home and they have several machines connected to it.
You have your private.
And then you have a private address and a public address, and then it's not going to work unless you configure port forwarding, which is probably more complicated than the question the novice is trying to get fixed anyway. Or unless your router has UPnP. But it can do this. This is a new trick. Microsoft can use Teredo. Teredo is a protocol, I believe it was developed by Microsoft. It's named after the kind of worm that burrows through the hulls of ships and makes them sink. And what this does is it digs out of network address translation. Network address translation is a terrible thing. The Internet Engineering Task Force is trying very hard to get rid of it. But everybody is used to it now. So if you're at this campus, for example, we have one gateway to the Internet, and it's 147, 144, well, the website is 1.212. I don't know what the IP address of our gateway is, but we have someplace one real public IP going to the Internet. And then we have 10,000 machines on campus in all the various buildings, connected to switches, connected to routers, and ultimately going up to that one portal. All the Internet traffic goes through one address. So this has entertaining effects, and this is the way everybody is. You've got a whole bunch of machines all going through one address. So for example, when I'm done teaching my hacking classes, all my students run to the lab and they all open my web page. It thinks I'm under attack. Suddenly they get 100 requests for my web page all in the same 10 seconds, all from the same address. So sometimes this address gets blocked by my DDoS protection service. And if you want to identify who the person is, like someone is sending bad malware, you want to block that address, you can't block one of these people, not at all, because they're all sharing the same address. There's just a lot of weird effects of this. And as anybody can tell you, if I wanted to launch a web server here, I could install, say, IIS on a Microsoft machine, and let's start listening on port 80 here, and I'd be listening on 192, 168, 1.140 on port 80. But nobody can send any traffic to that private address, except someone on campus. Someone on campus could see my web page, but my friend at home cannot see that web page because this is not a public address. And if they go to the public address on port 80, they'll see the college web server. This is considered a security feature by most people for this reason. If somebody installs a server without authorization at your company, nobody outside the company can see it because the packets will not reach them. You have to configure port forwarding, which tells the main router, send port 80 to that machine. There can only be one server on your entire network answering now each port. Anyway, in the world of IP version 6, this is all supposed to go away. Even if you have one point and you wish all the traffic to go through there so you can filter it, what you hand out are no longer private addresses, you hand out public addresses. They're much longer, but they'll be something like 2001 5E07414, and then a bunch of other stuff, which could be long, : 1::2 is one way to do it. All the different machines have this address, and that is a complete public address. They still have to go through this point, but they have a total public address, and when they make any request, it comes from that address, and everybody can know who is who. Anyway, in the real world, unfortunately, right now, the internet links in America don't carry IP version 6, except for Comcast. Most of them have not upgraded. So you only have IP version 4. So what you can do is you can do tunneling. Tunneling is insane. Tunneling was originally just an evil hacking trick. But in IP version 6, for some reason, they enshrined tunneling as the official protocols. This, in my opinion, was a mistake, but I was not consulted. That's the way it really is. In tunneling, if you took your Net Plus, the OSI model, you have 7 layers. Tunnel packets have more than 7 layers. This one's going to have 9 layers. It's going to have a physical layer, carrying the data, and then a data link layer at the MAC address level, and then an IP version 4 packet. And then inside the IP version 4 packet, there's another packet of IP version 6 being carried as the payload. And then all the higher levels up here. This is a weird, non-standard data transfer unit that will not be understood on many devices beyond this level. But it will route to the destination. You can't send this to like a web server requesting for a web page, because it'll look up here for something on TCP and it won't find it. You have to send it to a special tunnel broker that knows it's a tunnel packet, which will unpack it and turn it back into a proper IP version 6 packet and send it to the destination. So if you do use tunnels, it has weird effects. Like if I want to go from here to Yahoo in San Jose, I have to go to Amsterdam and back, because my tunnel opens up in Amsterdam. I have to send tunnel packs to Amsterdam, which are unpacked and then passed down to the IPv6 backbone back to San Jose. Anyway, the point is, Microsoft invented a technique for Chorito, is the technique where you can take a completely private IP version 4 address here, you can tunnel IP version 6 to a Microsoft server and back. And it does make it possible for people to use remote assistance. It's not obvious that you're doing this, but this is why many people have discovered that even when you are at work or at home behind network address translation or at an internet coffee house, you can use remote assistance now. Microsoft has a whole series of advanced networking techniques, and it tries them all in a shotgun approach, and if any of them can get through, you get through. So generally, it just works. But it's interesting behind the hood. It's doing quite complicated advanced things to punch through the address translations which are currently in use. By the way, if you get tired of this nonsense, you can use Teamviewer. Teamviewer is a third-party product which is extremely handy, and Teamviewer does this in a much simpler way. It installs a client you download this client, install it, it's only 1 megabyte, you can also email it or carry it around on a USB stick. They put that on the client, it runs, it has a little number like a phone number, and it goes to the Teamviewer server like a web viewer. and then the controller also goes to the Teamviewer server. So you're both outgoing traffic, which is allowed by everybody through the websites, and then you can remote control the device from there. And the security is, it pops up a sort of random number, it looks like a phone number, and they have to read that to you over a telephone. You type it in and take over their machine. It's very nice. This is what you usually get. You know, if you buy Windows, you get free utilities which do a job, and there's always a pay utility someplace or a third-party utility that will do that job better. These ones are free. Teamviewer is not completely free. I know a student that actually started using it for desktop support until he had like 200 clients on it, and they finally called him up and made him pay them some money. It's like free for personal use, and you're supposed to pay them if you're a business. And it was very obvious that he was a business at that point, so they made him pay him a couple $100. So Windows Firewall, if you turn on any Microsoft service and you're using the Microsoft Firewall, it will automatically open the ports, of course. It's friendly, it all works together. So if you turn on remote assistance, it'll open port 3389, but it will not open it if you're on a public network or in a corporate domain. Because in both of those cases, in a public network, the point of public network locations is you don't want to be a server at all. You don't want anybody connected to your machine. And in a corporate domain, you should not be controlling the security. The security is supposed to be controlled by the domain controller, which is managed by the corporate administrator. So your machine will not be opening ports. So if you want to do remote assistance, you run this remote assistance, and then you can choose to invite someone you trust to help you. And then you will create an invitation. If you both have Windows 7 or later, you can use Easy Connect, and it will automatically connect and send the invitation over. If not, you can save the file on your desktop and email it. It'll create a password. So there's an invitation, and the invitation will expire after a few hours. There's a password they have to have, and these are the security measures to prevent people from just taking over machines through remote assistance. If you don't have Windows 7 at both ends, you can just save an invitation file and move it with a physical USB drive or an email or anything to the other end, and then they will still need the password. And they can then view the desktop, and they can click a button that will ask to share the desktop, and you have to approve it, and then they can control your machine. It'll look like a virtual machine at their end. Your mouse will move, and they can type, and they can fix whatever your problem is. Of course, unless your problem is your network connection doesn't work, then of course remote assistance won't work either. All right, you can also use Windows Live Messenger. Now, if you configure this, which is not simple, you can actually make it so that the expert can initiate the help section. You can pop up boxes on people's machines and say, do you want help? This is not on by default because that really is just an invitation for criminals. Pop up a box, click on the link, take over the machine. You know, that's, that you have to configure in advance. But it is possible to do that with remote assistance. If you have earlier versions, then it works, but you don't get all the features. You won't get the fancy NAT traversal, so people will find that it probably doesn't work if they're at work or at a coffee house behind a network address translator. You can't have voice chat, and so on. There are a few limitations as you cross through to older versions. But it pretty much works. And there's a lot of security features, because this is obviously a huge security risk. Someone else is controlling your machine. That is exactly what all the crooks in the world want to do, so you want to make sure you don't have the wrong person controlling your machine. And here's the steps. They have to have the password. The novice has to be right there at the machine, clicking on boxes, agreeing to this. The file will expire after a while anyway, so if somebody gets in your email next week and finds those files, they can't take over machines, and so on. And the traffic, by the way, is encrypted, which is comforting. Some early versions of remote control clients, like the one, PC Anywhere, had the ability to send unencrypted screenshots over the internet. And that's not good, because that could have sensitive corporate data in it. And remote assistance does encrypt stuff now. So I got some iClicker questions. You used these last time, right? Okay, good. So most people know what's going on. So let me start my app. That's right. I had to use a different computer, but I had the iClickers. Yeah, if you don't have one, come get one. Just leave some kind of ID card, but nothing valuable, because another student might take it. So if you don't use a driver's license or a credit card or anything. In fact, let me see if I got any offenders. An offender. It's you. You're using a driver's license. Just put your name on a piece of paper instead.
I didn't intend to do that.
Somebody could take that. Yeah, that's. I have a couple cases where some students took another student's ID.
I meant to put my student ID.
And so far it was only student ID. But someday someone's going to take a credit card out here or something. I try to avoid that. Your identity stolen in my class, that's embarrassing. So,
That's the numbers in the papers.
yeah. Anyway. All right. So, there you go. All right, which of these is not true of remote assistance? All right, I see you got a lot of answers. Guess I'll quit at 40 on this one. All right, all those things are true, except of course you don't need to be on the same network. That would make it almost useless. All right, you could even invite a stranger you find in a chat room to take over your machine and fix the problem. If you really want to do that, I wouldn't recommend it, but the idea is you can contact your official help desk that might be at the other branch office, or your family. I know a guy that was supporting his family in like a foreign country with this stuff, which is fine. So which of these is not true of remote assistance? Guess I'll quit at 40 again. All right, I think the web browser is the bad one here. You can do remote desktop through a web browser. It is a feature you can turn on. There is no way to make remote assistance go through a web browser. You have to run that remote assistance client. The rest of these things are true. This one here sounds a little goofy, where you can only do it on private networks, but that's the point. You can't have the network type set to public or corporate, or the firewall will block this. And remote desktop, which one of these is false? There's remote desktop, which is different than remote assistance. I'll quit at 45. I see some answers still coming in. All right, remote desktop, the first four are all true. You hide one screen, you can connect to your browser, but it doesn't go through that. It doesn't do that Dorito stuff. It can only get through network address translation if your administrator forwards a port, and that is by design, because this one's dangerous. This one is taking over a computer at night when nobody's there. That's just what all the criminals want to do. So this will not pass through any kind of network address translation unless you forward it. Do port forwarding or set up a VPN, and that is correct. You wouldn't want this to just casually go out of your corporate network. The other one is not that bad because the person has to be right at the keyboard asking for it. It's not going to happen at midnight when criminals take over your machine. But this one is. So it will not punch through that. All right, this one's remote assistance again. Which of these is false? Guess I'll quit at 40. All right. It works through that. VPN, of course, virtual private network. In fact, that's a very good way to do everything with this. That means everything's encrypted and you had to have a password of some sort to get in. Virtual private networks are typically how you let remote users into your corporation. It's just considered the safest way to do it in most cases. All right. So, personalizing Windows. Windows 7 Starter doesn't have the 3D effects or anything. Oh, I can finally show you now. I'm on an actual Windows 7 machine, theoretically. Doesn't work. That's rude. Oh, we don't have the arrow graphics turned on. Neat. Well, let me see if I can turn them on. That's rude. If you're going to have a Windows 7 machine, you ought to have this stuff turned on. What else is it for? It's personalize. And the arrow themes. It was on some other theme. Let's have an arrow theme. There we are. Microsoft worked so hard to do this. These transparent borders, so you can see the thing behind it. And the 3D flip. They spent so much money developing this, and then they just turn it off. Because in fact, it's useless. In fact, Microsoft abandoned it in Windows 8. It's gone. But they sure spent a lot of money developing it before giving up on it. And because they're moving everything into tablets, and this is an enormous waste of resources on your tablet, so they don't have it. Anyway, well, that's the game. They had all these fancy graphics. They are available if you are on this kind of machine. Shift F5, all right. So we talked about this before. You can drag buttons down to the taskbar and pin them there, and then you have a second start button. You can have many ways to open a program now. You can click Start, All Programs, and find stuff the old XP way. You can type the name of your program here and find it, like Snag It, which isn't installed. I could find it there. You can find the button down here and left-click it to launch it. You can right-click the button, and then you've got recent documents and pinned documents, and so on you go. There's just many, many ways to launch things. This is just like the Apple dock and very, very handy. All right, by the way, these are all launching without administrative privileges. If I right-click on this and left-click on that, well, that particular one is already administrative. Let's put a normal CMD down there if I can. Here's CMD. Okay, this is the non-administrator command prompt. It doesn't say administrator up there. Now I can make a shortcut out of that. I think I can drag it right from here, CMD. I can drag it and put it down here. Yep. It won't go, all right. I can put it there, but that's gonna move it and take it out of there. I'm gonna right drag and copy it there. Now I have a shortcut here that will launch the non-administrator command prompt. Now I should be able to put that down here, there. This is not administrative, that is administrative. If you click on this one, you get that command prompt without the administrator privileges. If you click on that one, you have to agree to user account control privilege escalation, and now I'm the administrator. And while I'm at it, let me just point out the difference between these. I have configured them to have different colors, but you can also see them in Task Manager, which you can get by right-clicking down here. If I go into Task Manager, I now have two command processors, and I also use my Control 1. Aha! So I have one here. The bottom one is not administrative. The top one is administrative. And if I go to the process associated with that, you should be able to see the owner. They're both owned by S-bound. All right, fair enough. I'm just used to hacking in from the outside, and one of them is actually system, and you'll see a different owner on it. But anyway, that they show up as two separate processes with two different privileges. They have their own process ID and so on. And so if I execute a command in here, like bcd edit, and spell it right, it fails, but that same command will work in this one. And it doesn't tell you why, which is kind of rude. It just says access is denied. So be aware of that. This will frustrate Windows XP users, where there was no such distinction. It also makes you much safer, because everything you do on the internet is not administrative. It is much harder to infect your machine. All right, anyway, you can open any command program with administrative privilege with Shift-Control-Click, or with Shift-Control-Enter, if you're launching it from the search box. Although, in my experience, Shift-Control-Enter frequently fails. I think it's an error in keyboard drivers. That key press doesn't seem to efficiently make its way into every system. Right-click, Run as Administrator, is the most reliable way. So these are the buttons. If you have several open windows of the same type, you will get stacked buttons here with borders. This is two of these open. There's only one open, you see one. If there's no border around it, then none of these are open right now. It's just pinned there. By the way, paint, for example, you cannot tell if paint is pinned here or not. There's a paint window open, so it'll appear on the taskbar. There is no visual cue to tell you whether it's pinned here. So when you close paint, this might vanish or it might not, and there's no way to tell. Anyway, those are the thumbnail previews. I know I showed you those last time. You go down here and hover over it. It will show you a small version of that window. You can see what's going on. In fact, let's open another one of these. So there's that double effect for two open windows. I open another one. It's got three now. I don't know how far it goes before you can't see them anymore, but it does draw a border showing you how many of them are open. Trying to make it more intuitive. So logo 1 will open the first item, which on this machine will be Windows Explorer. Logo 2 will open Chrome, Logo 3 will open Firefox, and so on. The first 10 you can launch with automatic key presses. And these docking keys are kind of fun. Logo up maximizes, logo right puts it on the right, left puts it back in the middle, left puts it on the left, down minimizes it. That's actually extremely useful. I really miss that when I have to go back and use Windows XP. Like logo up, just to cure right now. All right. And you can drag them, which I showed you before. When the mouse touches the edge, it'll fill half the screen, which is kind of new. It used to be dependent on the window position, but now it's actually dependent on the mouse position when the mouse touches the edge, because it's intended to be a tablet and you're moving it with your finger.
So, Sam,
Yeah,
you said it's up to 10
yeah.
programs?
Logo 0 should
So,
be 10, I think.
Logo 0, that's what I was
Yeah.
going to ask, yes.
Oh, I haven't actually tested it. I probably should. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Logo 10. Logo 0 should be Excel. Let's see. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. So it works. Yep. All right. So you can right-click on the taskbar and then go to Taskbar Properties, and you can adjust a lot of this stuff. You can decide to lock it so people quit moving it around. This is actually kind of a good idea because students will do stuff in the lab like it's curtain locked. If you unlock it, then you can put it other places like there or up here, and that's pretty confusing for people. So you can also determine whether to auto-hide it or not. Auto-hide is the way this one is set right now. I don't really think that's very appropriate in this kind of room. I'm going to make it this way. That is a good feature on like a netbook where you don't have much room and you really want to save this ½ inch at the bottom. Then it will keep vanishing on you, but you have to keep moving down there to make it pop up. And by the way, I thought I just turned it off, didn't I?
Save it.
Oh, no, it's back on. Okay. Lock. Apply. There we are. And now I've permanently occupied that part of the screen. All right. All right. Notification area is over here. This has been an area of irritation for a lot of Windows users. Windows 98 used to grow until you'd have dozens of things there. And now Microsoft will only show a certain number here and the rest are hidden behind this button. These are all the things that are running in the background. Very often they are things you don't want running, slowing down your machine, and it's nice to close them here or remove them with msconfig. Anyway, you can just customize a lot about it, like whether you want computer on the menu, whether you want network on the menu, whether you want download on the menu, and so on. The start button, by default, doesn't contain download, but you can put it there with start menu, customize, and I can add downloads here. And now, when I click start, there's a downloads button there. So you can control these sort of things. You can also put the run button back if you want it. You don't normally need the run button. Most anything you can run it right from here, but not everything. All right. So arrow snap is this feature where when you get close to something, it snaps to a configured size. The arrow shake is this one. Shake. Hey, that's working. Neat. Well, it worked once. Yeah, all right. Minimizes everything else. Oops. Hit the wrong button. Whoops, hit the wrong button again. All right. Excuse me. Double click maximizes too. That's been around forever. We've been through those. All right. Yeah. So I showed you this one before. That makes everything turn transparent briefly. That's called arrow peak, and that's the 3D flip. And after they put that out, Ubuntu Linux had to do the same thing. They made something where your whole desktop is a cube and you have 4 sides on it to try to compete. These things all have fashions, like, if one movie comes out about zombies, suddenly there's 10 movies about zombies. All right, you can set up the slideshow here or control your general graphic environment and personalization like I did before to turn on the arrow. By the way, Arrow is demanding of resources. It requires a gaming graphics card and it often crashes. So I ought to mention, if you have trouble with Arrow, it's one of the many things where the troubleshooter actually works. If you type Arrow, you will have Arrow troubleshoot. All right. I've lost it accidentally very often enough. Troubleshooting, there we are. The troubleshooters are really very nice now. They actually work, they're like automated gadgets. So for example, if my arrow wasn't working, it is working, but suppose I want to display it. I can display it here, and it will now check a whole bunch of stuff. This is extremely handy because there are a lot of things that can be wrong that make Arrow fail. There are a lot of things that can make, and it will just automatically check the video card and a lot of other things. These things actually work. In earlier versions of Windows, these things were mostly a checklist that just had things like jiggle the cable and useless things like that. Now they actually fix it for you automatically, and they actually frequently fix a problem. So it's a good thing to know. Couldn't identify the problem because there is no problem for that one, but when something crashes later, we'll get to try it for real. Troubleshooters are actually worth using. You can make a slideshow from an RSS feed, by the way. If someone has an RSS feed full of figures, you can automatically download them and put it in the background, but not the astronomy photo of the day, which is the one I wanted. Anyway, I guess you can get pussycats or sports figures or something. This is actually very handy. I was just doing this over the weekend. Almost everybody has multiple monitors these days. A lot of people do. At Microsoft, they require every desk to have 2 monitors. They require you to have your email open at one at all time because they use email and instant messenger. They send you an email, you're supposed to get it right away and go do something. But you can have as many as you want. You can put them in a pattern. You can hang them upside down, make a 3x3 grid or out of them, whatever you like, these flat tops, and you can just drag them around here and tell it where they are. If you don't, then you'll be going off the right edge of this one and coming out on that one. So it's really very nice. And everybody has this for free if you have a laptop. If you go home and dock your laptop to this, you do the laptop screen, and this second screen will appear as separate monitors. And you can extend your desktop and have it bigger when you're plugged in. That's quite handy. This has been around, by the way, since Windows 2000, the ability to have up to 10 monitors. It's just not, the hardware wasn't cheap enough that very many people had it back then. My power and sleep options, this is kind of funny. If you click here, and you click here, there's a menu of how many ways to turn the thing off. And one of the engineers that quit Microsoft and went to Google quit because he spent 1 entire year with a team of 6 people designing this menu. And they never got it done, and he finally quit and said, I can't stand this place anymore. Because there's like 4 different ways to turn it off, and he would design it, and then another team would say, no, you have to change it, and they change it, and another team would say, you have to change it, and he finally said, you know, I hate this life. And as you know, a normal human says, just put a button that says off, pick one, and it goes off, and don't bother you. But there are many, the problem is, there are several things you might want when you turn your machine off. One is you want it to completely go off and stop using the battery entirely. That's one thing you might want. The problem is, you'll lose all your documents, all the stuff you were halfway in the middle of. So you have to save them all first, so it'll be slow shutting down and slow coming back. The other thing is I want it to wake up really fast. So that's sleep, where it just turns off the screen and the hard drive, but the RAM is still there, so you press a key and it pops right back up. And Microsoft is inventing all these halfway in between things, and they're useful to know. The modern default is hybrid sleep, which is somewhere between sleep and hibernate. Hibernate saves all your documents in a hard drive on the disk, in a file as big as your RAM, and then shuts off all the power. So hibernate is what I always use my laptops for. If I close the lid, it hibernates. It will save all the RAM in the hard drive and turn the power off completely so it stops draining the battery. And when it comes back, all my unsaved documents will appear back in RAM. But it takes a little longer to start. What most of these do by default is sleep, which is probably appropriate for a machine like this that's plugged in the wall. Anyway, you can adjust them. When you press the power button, when you close the lid, when you press the sleep button, what's going to happen on battery or plugged in. So you can make it do any of a variety of options here. Let me see if I can hibernate on this machine because that is interesting.
What were you saying that hybrid sleep is the default for?
Windows 7.
Just in general?
In general it is, yeah. And let me see, change when the computer sleeps. Is that going to be it? Yeah, we're getting here. See, advanced power setting. See, it's not where I want to be. How do you get here? Power options, okay. Power options. There we are. So what I want to know is about choose what the power buttons do. Okay. Shut down and sleep. Now, hibernation is typically not enabled, and you can tell by looking at the root of C. If I open computer and I look at the root of C, I'm not showing hidden files, so let me show them. This, by the way, is super important. Organize, folder and search options. This is coming up, I think, later, but if you go into a folder like this, it's got a folder that has a file in it, like Windows, okay. Here are some files. It's showing the 3-letter extensions, which are really useful. By default, they're hidden, which just gives you a headache. So the cure for that is organize folder and search options, view, and uncheck hide extensions for known file types. That's the, that right there is the option which controls whether you see the extensions or not. Now I'm going to show hidden files and show protected operating system files, which is not recommended because it lets you see things that you're not supposed to mess with. And now, when I look at the root of C, I see this thing, hyperfile.sys. That's what I wanted to show you. You will not see this on a clean install of Windows 7. This happens if you turn on hibernation. This is the image of the entire RAM. It's exactly as big as all your RAM, and if you have hibernation turned on, this is where it will put it. And therefore, it uses up quite a bit of space on your hard drive, and it is a security risk. That is not encrypted. That's clear text of everything in RAM. So it's got passwords you typed into web pages, documents and spreadsheets you were working on that were in RAM, and so on. So this is one of the many reasons why Microsoft had to invent full drive encryption. Originally, they had EFS, encrypting file service, so you could encrypt one folder, like your documents folder, but then they found out when a document is open, there's temporary copies of it in like C, in user data, specific to your application, like Word. So then they told you to encrypt your entire profile folder, C, users, SAM. You encrypt that, and then your file and all your temporary files are encrypted, but there's still personal data in the hibernation file and the page file, so the only thing to make your laptop safe is to encrypt the whole hard drive. If you do anything less, and you lose your laptop at the airport, you cannot tell your security compliance officer that I know nobody got the stuff. And then you have to tell your government agencies overseeing your business that you had a breach and humiliate yourself and appear in the newspaper. The only thing that will prevent all that nonsense is encrypting the whole hard drive with BitLock or TrueCrypt. Anyway.
Or doing away with your page file and hyper file.
No, even if you do away with them, there are still temporary files. You cannot turn off the page file, for example, in Windows. And by the way, the page file in Windows, it goes both ways. It's very strange. You take computer forensics, you'll see. It's storing stuff all over the place. You can limit the damage of that sort of thing, but you can't prevent it completely. All right, I got a few more eye clickers, and we'll take a break, I reckon. Yeah, looks like that time. All right, how do you open that menu? Guess I'll quit it for you. All right, and we can just try it here. If I left-click the Start button, I get that, which is not what you're looking at. If I right-click the Start button, I get that, which is not what you're looking at. If I left-click this, it's going to launch that window, which is not what I'm looking at. It's right-clicking this, Windows Explorer, that shows you recent places you've been in Windows Explorer, and that's what you're seeing here. So it's right-click Y. And that is C, a popular answer. Good. All right. All right, how do you maximize a window? Put it for you. All right. And the answer is D. And let me show you why C is not correct, because a lot of people are picking C. There is a subtlety here. Let me find a window that is not maximum, like this one. Okay, if you drag the title bar, this thing is called the title bar. If you drag the title bar to the top, it maximizes. Okay, let's do that, all right? Now, if you drag the border to the top, it expands vertically but not horizontally. So that's the difference. Kind of screwy, but that's the way it is. All right, and Alt-Up arrow doesn't work. Alt-up arrow does nothing. Well, it does, it takes you up to the previous folder. It's logo up arrow that maximizes it. Not always. Anyway. All right. How many of those are pinned to the taskbar? Quit at 40. All right. I think E is the best answer.
Yes.
They could all be pinned. That is a possibility. The only thing you know is this one is for sure pinned. The others are open. They could be open and pinned or open and unpinned. Yeah.
What about the start button? That's all.
Well, the start button's always there. It's
Right.
that, they don't call that pinned.
Okay.
Because you can't unpin it. That's Windows 8.
Right.
In Windows 8, it's gone. And you have to put some effort to bring it back.
I chose E because you can't tell if they're pinned or not, but
That's right. And so but you know at least one is pinned. That's all you know. This one's pinned. But
okay.
it's not currently open. But that's right. So you cannot answer, the E is the best answer. But you're right, the start button does not count. It's not called pinned because you can't unpin it.
Can you unpin the notepad?
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't like something like this Excel, you can just unpin it, and it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, good. All right. So which one of these will not let you change the background image? Looks like I can put a 30 on this one. All right, and that is in fact one of the irritating things about Starter. Just to try to annoy you into paying for home premium. You can't change the background image, it's got something annoying there. All right, and there. What does that double border mean on that folder icon? Yes, I'll quit at 30. All right, and that's multiple open windows. Everyone got that. All right, Travis. Glad to see it. All right. So, you know, this is relatively light stuff. We'll get into the more technical, dense stuff later. But that's all the chapter I got for today. So let me just, what I'm going to do, this is it. I'll just go up to the lab and help people who are going to work on your projects. Let me point out one thing. I don't know if I made this clear before.
Yeah, sure.
If you install Windows 7, for example, if you don't want to install Windows 7, you might want to install Ultimate, 7 Ultimate instead. So do 5X if you like. It's worth as many points as 1. You can do it instead or in addition. All right, anyway, let me see who got the most right. Somebody deserves some points.
How does that work? Is it just you only get credit if only a couple people get extra credit, whoever gets the most points?
Yes, yeah, only the people who get the most get extra credit on these eye-clickers, yes. For example, just these 2 8s today.
Nuts.
Yeah, so just the easiest way for me to grade it, since I don't have assigned clickers and I don't know your names, I don't want to write down 30 names, so this is how I get it. So 61 and 83 are the winners. And I'll just clean up here and go up to the lab